Today on Words and Numbers, racism in Vegas,
what we can learn from drowning rats,
the unlikely collapse of the NFT market,
and a fix for Social Security.
All this and more today on Words and Numbers, a CiVL original production. Check us out at CiVL.com, CiVL.com.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Anthony.
And this is Words and Numbers.
What's new and exciting in your world this week?
There's an experiment that you probably have heard of, although you may not know the name, the Richter experiment. This was back in the 1950s, and they took, it's more complicated than I'm going to go into, but the long and short of it is they took a bunch of rats and they put them in water such that they had to tread water, otherwise they would drown.
I absolutely know this experiment. This is fantastic.
Yeah, basically two sets of rats, and I just looked up the numbers here. The first set, the control group, they put them in the water and watched to see how long they would tread water until finally they just would give up and drown. I don't know if they actually let them drown, but that was the thing. And they timed it. It took 40 to 60 hours. So these rats are there treading water for 40 to 60 hours. Then they did with another set. They had them in there and again treading water until they're about to drown. But then the experimenters took them out and gave them a little time to rest. I don't know how long they gave them to rest, and put them back in. They wanted to see now how long they would go. And the long and short of it is total time treading water for the group that was just left there and you die was 40 to 60 hours. For the other group, they were rats taken out, given a little bit of rest, put back in, 60 to 80 hours. So a 50 to 100% increase in the time they spent treading water. And there are all sorts of controls on this experiment, but the conclusion is that what was going on is the experimenters were offering the rats hope, that there was a chance that they'll get saved at the end of it, and so because of that, they're willing to push on further. And that experiment came to my mind recently when I was having a conversation with some people about right-to-die laws. And somebody said that in instances in states in which there are right-to-die laws and you can request whatever the medications are, and apparently under the law you have to take them yourself, so you can't just ask someone to administer these things, but nonetheless the pills are there. And what happens is a vast majority of people don't use them. Like 80% of the people don't use them, and it reminded me of this rat thing. Is it the case that having the ability to end one's life, and understand that we're talking about people who are in tremendous pain, they're going to die eventually anyway, but is it the case that when we give someone the ability to end their life, it gives them agency? Maybe, I don't know if hope is the right word here, but it gives them some control that causes them to press on further.
Yeah. I don't know. You know what I always say about hope, Ant? Hope stings eternal. Hope is deeply overrated.
And herein lies something interesting, because you and I have talked before about Catholic doctrine, and the Catholic Church frowns on right to die. No, you should not.
It's a bit of an understatement, Ant.
Yeah, it is a bit of an understatement. But the reason they say this is because of, in the church's words, the salvific effect of suffering. That is, suffering itself has
salutary effect.
Has salutary, yeah, right, yeah, and you can interpret that if you're a religious person. You can interpret that as in a religious tone. If you're not, you can interpret it in a humanist tone, whatever you want. But this is the church's position, and it occurred to me as we're having this conversation about right to die, how can there be a salvific effect if you don't have the ability to choose?
Let's not understate the obvious, right? Everybody, every day, has the ability to choose. If you have a Walmart, a Walgreens, or a CVS anywhere near you, You could be dead by this evening.
Yeah, but we're talking about a particular subset of the population now. People who are A, going to die in the immediate future, and B, are in intense suffering.
Yeah, but they already had the ability to end their lives at very little cost.
Well, they did before, but now that they're in the hospital, not so much.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you
depending
can make
what
it
state you're
easier. You can make it easier, but to say that people don't have the ability to end their own lives is just patently absurd, right? Everybody can do it at the drop of a hat. We all just choose not to, because come to find out, even people who are in tremendous pain place a premium on staying alive. Mm-hmm. Even from an outsider's perspective, we may look at them and say, but why? And it's really none of our business. They do. I think this all chalks up to human nature.
But
right? We want to keep living.
Let me go back to the concept of hope, whether you're talking about a right to die situation or the rats or what have you. I think this is something that, from an economic perspective, we don't pay nearly enough attention to. And you and I touched on this a few episodes ago when we said, look, Americans probably would be willing to do what's necessary to tighten their belts to get to a balanced budget if they knew that it was X years off. We're going to do this, right, and we're going to be in a better place thereafter. That idea of hope is an incredible motivator.
I'll give you a better example, or at least what I think is a better example. When poor people in the United States are polled, and I mean seriously polled using serious scientific methods, right? This isn't an MSNBC bit of nonsense. This is real public opinion data. When poor people are polled about whether they want complete socialism or complete free market capitalism, the overwhelming answer is free market capitalism.
Really?
Even on the part of the people who would benefit the most in the most immediate sense from a socialist regime. And when you drill down into the questions a bit deeper, it's because the vast majority of them think that they can make it here.
Yes, right.
They already have this inherent hope that I'm poor now, but I'm not gonna be forever.
Right.
And that's an interesting thing, right? And I think you see that dissipating a little bit in the current generation of young people who, at least publicly, work with the assumption that I'm poor and I always will be and it ain't fair.
Yeah, and how much of that, I hate to be an armchair psychologist here, but how much of that is due to the fact that on average, and underline on average, younger people today have had easier lives than young people in the past? There's something to be said for overcoming adversity, that you can look back on your life and say, hey, I got through that through my own wit or will or strength or what have you, and that sets you up in a mindset of success for the future.
And for 2 years, during my undergraduate and master's degree period, I did not take out any student loans. I worked my ass off. I paid for everything as I went, and I didn't eat anything other than ramen noodles and hot dogs, because that's all I could afford. And during the student loan debate, the forgiveness debate, I remember bringing up the point that you brought up, not in the detail that I just gave you, but I said, look, you took out the loan. You have to pay it back. That's just good manners, apart from anything else, right? And they said, well, you don't know how hard it is. I'm like, oh, Punkin, please. I worked 60 hours a week, third shift for 3.5 years to get through my undergraduate years. I know what hard is like. And then the answer became, well, just because it was hard for you doesn't mean it has to be for the rest of us. Well, which is it? Is it that I don't know what hard is, or that if I do, it shouldn't be hard for you too? And I think there is some benefit to grinding it out for a while. I don't know how far that benefit goes, but there is some benefit to it.
Yeah, and I could see this with my kids as they grew up, became teenagers and older. The ones who went out and got jobs, even if it was, working the window at a McDonald's, you could see it. I could see a change in them, that they had a sense of agency that they didn't have before. They have the ability to do something now.
At least 2 of the Davies children gave me coffee at the drive-thru at McDonald's in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. I think it might have been 3, but they all look so similar. It's hard to tell the difference.
That's right. Get Words and Numbers on CiVL.com and on CiVL's TV and mobile apps. Regular episodes are free. Sign up for an annual membership to support our show and for access to member-exclusive content.
Anyway, I want to bring us back to Las Vegas in the 1960s. And this is a story that's apparently pretty well known, and I get it through Quincy Jones, but it comes through a number of other people as well. Apparently, Harry Belafonte was playing the Sands, the casino, and Frank Sinatra had a minority interest in the Sands, so he was always hanging around there. And Belafonte was apparently in 1964, maybe you can do some quick math for us, making $17,000 a month there.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
How much money is it? He asked.
Oh, good Lord. 17, probably. You said a month?
Yeah, in 1964.
So regular background inflation, prices double, let's say, every 20 years, and that's
Can't you
roughly
just use one
60
of them
years
online
ago.
Calculators.
Oh,
you got to do
guess
it in your head to show
You've
off
got
for the people.
So 510,000?
Come on, Rain Man, get me the answer.
1964 and $17,000. That is equivalent to today. Wow, I was off. 178,000.
That's a lot of cheddar every month right there.
Per month.
Per month. By any estimation, Harry Belafonte was stinking rich. And yet he couldn't stay at the Sands and he couldn't get a meal in the restaurant because of the color of his skin.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So they could hire him and pay him that much, but he couldn't stay there. And he couldn't have dinner. What a messed up world.
Good Lord.
Anyway, here's the interesting part. That's not interesting. We all know that kind of thing went on. Apparently, Frank Sinatra had enough. And he said, no more. And he assigned a bodyguard to every black performer and had the bodyguard walk up to the check-in desk with him as he checked into the hotel. And the bodyguards were known colloquially at the time as Goombas, a word that might have been offensive to Italians at one point, but I don't care. And the Goombas apparently were big and scary enough that the racism went away immediately, and all the black performers got to stay at the Sands, and they got to have dinner in the restaurant where they were performing. And isn't it something that if you stop and think for just half a second, what does this mean? It means that organized crime had a say in the disappearance of racism in the United States.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, what do you know about
organized crime? Organized crime was after a buck. And ultimately, you see this across time and across countries. Countries that are more economically free have far fewer problems like this. Because why? If you're looking to make a buck, you don't want to make an enemy out of a potential customer.
Yeah. Or maybe Frank Sinatra was just horrified by how his friends were being treated, which I think is actually a pretty nice thing, all things considered. No matter how you slice it, it's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
And you know that I think a lot about how racism nearly disappeared in the United States. It's not gone by any stretch, but it's nearly gone. And the things that had the most to do with it are all pop culture things. It's never the Supreme Court of the United States, right? Schools were already desegregating by the time Brown was decided. It's never the Congress. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 followed pop culture. It didn't lead pop culture. Fascinating, right? People decide on their own what they want, and then they do it. So there you go. I wanted to talk today, and in the foolishness of the week portion of the program, about NFTs. Do you even remember?
I have not heard that term in several years.
I wonder why that
They were going to be the big. They were going to be the big thing after cryptocurrency.
They were going to be the big thing, and after crypto, and it turns out they're not at all. And people are losing their shirts on NFTs right now. There was one especially that was given away for free. If you were a member of a specific blockchain, you could just claim it. And then these very things started selling on the secondary market, if we can even call it that, for $7, $10, $30 million. Now they sell for $0. So it was a game of musical chairs. And the boobs who got stuck standing up when the music stopped ended up losing their shirts. And I remember when they first came out, a couple of people whose judgment I generally trust said, oh, this is going to be huge. It's the next big thing. And I thought, people are going to want, let me get this straight, art or sports memorabilia or whatever that they can't hold in their hands, that doesn't exist in the real world, that's just some digital representation of a baseball card or a painting or whatever it is that people like. And, you know, there's things hanging on your wall. I can see them as we speak. Well, you value them or they wouldn't be hanging on your wall. Would you value them the same if they existed digitally only?
Well, it depends. If I could see them, like make it my background on my computer screen, yeah.
Really? You would spend hundreds of dollars for a background on a
No,
computer screen?
I'm not saying I'd value it that much.
That's right. You would have some unknown value, but you wouldn't pay money for it. I have 3 screens open in front of me now. I didn't pay for any of the background things I'm looking at. Why the hell would I? It's just a piece of digital nonsense. And I remember thinking at the time, there is no way that this is going to hold long term. No way. And as I watched the prices go up into the tens of millions, I thought to myself, could I have possibly been wrong about this? And thankfully, no, I was not. And the world has decided to turn its back on NFTs. I just can't believe people fell for it as long as they did.
What surprised me is that NFTs never seem to figure themselves out. I remember talking to some people who were into NFTs back in the day, and I gave the same complaints that you're giving. And I said, look, the way to solve this problem is to find a way legally to link the NFT to a real-world object, such that whoever owns the NFT owns the object. Then you could imagine all kinds of things.
But that defeats the purpose.
Well, yes and no. It gives you a new use for NFTs. So I want to sell you my car. We don't have to go through all of the title nonsense. I just sell you the NFT. Whoever holds the NFT owns that car. Now, I got to give you the car as well. But
as far as
it becomes proof of ownership.
Concerned, you're going to have to go through all the titling anyway.
And that's the problem.
Do you know what it would work for? Acres on the moon. Acres on the moon.
I raised that issue. I said, look,
moving right along.
You can
moving right along.
Create a bunch of NFTs, one for each acre on the moon, and start to give them away or sell them or whatever. There's nobody else claiming the thing. at least over a long period of time, someone who's held this NFT or passed it on, you can trace its lineage. You say, well, nobody else has claimed it, but this guy has a better claim than anybody else.
I do hereby claim the entire moon for myself. Let's never talk about it again. It's mine.
Let us move on.
Now let's get into some real foolishness now.
Yeah, we put this off long enough. It's time to talk about Social Security. And we've talked about Social Security many times on the podcast, in op-eds. And every time we've said, look, by Social Security's own words, it's going to become insolvent. But the insolvency date was far enough into the future that nobody paid attention to us.
We looked it up today. Back 20 years ago, the insolvency date, or 15 years ago, I guess it was, the insolvency date was, what the hell was it?
2037? Yeah.
But
now
lo
it's
and behold,
2033.
2033. It's moving in the wrong direction.
Right. Yeah. In fact, earlier than that.
Moving forward would be great. Yeah. Staying still would be okay. Moving backwards is a real problem.
Yeah, so 2033, and we're close enough to 2033. I can't imagine it's going to change that much more. Maybe the actual date is 2030, but at that point it doesn't matter. The insolvency is upon us. So we're talking now one presidential term?
No, it's 8 years.
Maybe 1.5. Yeah.
It's 8 years.
So what I want to talk about is a plan that you and I proposed many years ago. And I went back and revisited all of the numbers, updated everything. And the question is this plan that we'll describe here in a moment, can it save us from Social Security's demise? The short answer is yes, it can. The longer answer is it's going to take a long time. But the interesting footnote is actually everybody will be better off. The retirees, the people who are paying in, and the federal government.
Which is why, Ant, we already know that nobody's ever going to implement this plan.
No, the 100 years is going to be a deal breaker. But here's the plan. Yep. Before I give you the plan, actually, let me give you the background. And I'm going to talk here about earnings and longevity. And when I do, I'm always talking about the median American, not the average, the median. So think about the median 20-year-old and how his earnings change over time. And as his earnings change, of course, he's earning more or less money, and he retires and he gets Social Security based on those earnings. You can calculate how much, and I've done this, how much he'll pay into Social Security and how much he'll receive back. And the numbers go roughly like this. And everything I'm going to talk about here, it's all adjusted for inflation. So when I say numbers, I mean in 2025 purchasing power terms. The median 20-year-old can expect to pay somewhere between $350,000 and $370,000 into Social Security. And that's his half and his employer's halves together. He'll receive back somewhere between $520,000 and $620,000.
I see a problem.
Well, it sounds like, a nice return. But if you do the numbers, because the money you're paying out now, the money you get back 40, 50 years into the future, it turns out that he's making, in effect, about 1% above inflation.
Yep. That's the problem.
Yeah. The rate of return on Social Security is abysmal.
Yeah,
it is
dreadful.
So bad. Yeah, well, it's not just, and this is the median American we're talking about here. Average rate of return is 1% after inflation. For people with greater mortality rates, I'm thinking specifically of black males.
Black men.
Yeah, the rate of return is negative.
That's right. The median black male will get less than $0 back.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
well,
he'll pay in more.
He'll get less. He won't get less than $0 back. He'll get far less back than he paid in.
Yeah.
Black men die so far before retirement, and I don't think people realize this. their mortality is such that there's no good reason to charge them for Social Security at all.
Right. Yes, that's correct.
Because it's not helping them in the least.
Mm-hmm.
This is a transfer from black people to white people.
Yeah, not intended that way by any means, but that's
But it is.
Well, and I should say that the big winners here when it comes to Social Security are Asian females.
Sure, they live forever.
Yeah. Not only that, but they also tend to have much higher incomes. Did you know?
Yep.
I didn't know this until I was looking up the other day. If you look at the average earnings for workers broken down by gender and race, the highest is not white males, it's Asian females. That's amazing.
Asian female surprises me. Asian does not.
Yeah. But one of the things that we say repeatedly, I want to drive it home again, as I don't think people appreciate this, the part of the big reason that Social Security has such an abysmal rate of return is because it comes with an effective 100% death tax. You can pay into Social Security from age 20 to age 67, and you can drop dead on your 67th birthday. And all that money you paid in, well, the government gets to keep it. Now, there's a footnote. If you have a spouse, some of it goes to the spouse. If you have dependent children, some will go to dependent children. But generally speaking, what you're getting back is not at all what you put in. It comes with this death tax, which is very different than savings. You put money into savings over your career, you drop dead at your 67th birthday. Your heirs get whatever's in the pot.
They get all of it.
Yeah, right.
And it's been earning probably very likely more than 1%.
Yeah, and therein lies the key to saving Social Security. We're going to leverage the fact that the rate of return is so abysmal.
And I don't think people will understand. They're going to think that you're exaggerating.
Oh, yeah. So let me tell you how this works. Here's our proposal. Starting next year, workers, as they enter the workforce at age 20, they pay Social Security just like everybody else does. They continue to pay Social Security just like everybody else does until they hit their 40th birthday. On their 40th birthday, two things happen. First, they're no longer taxed Social Security tax. So that 12.4% that used to go to the federal government now stays in their pockets. Two, when they retire, they get no Social Security benefit, no retirement benefits. So in effect, what we're doing...
Well, if they opt out, correct? You could stay in if you want.
Yeah, we could talk about that twist in a moment. I'm thinking right now, what happens if we just put everybody on this plan? The net result is you start at age 20, you're paying in just like you do now. At age 40, you stop paying in, but you don't get Social Security benefits either. People are going to start losing their minds, saying, yeah, but how am I going to retire if I'm not going to get Social Security benefits? And here's where the low rate of return comes in.
Very, very comfortably is going to be my guess.
Yeah, because if you take that 12.4% that previously was going to the federal government, and people are going to say, wait a minute, only 6.2% is coming out of my paycheck. The employer's paying the other 6.2. No. The full 12.4 is coming out of your paycheck.
That's correct.
What's happening is that the employer, when he hires you, knowing that he has to pay 6.2%, is going to offer you 6.2% less than what he would have offered you otherwise.
Because he's not out of his mind.
Right. No, this is a cost to employing the guy. And the employer's someone's got to pay this. The employer's not going to pay it.
So the leveraging angle here is the interesting one, right? Because if you're getting a 1% rate of return in this mandatory government program, but any rational human being can expect over time to average at least 8% a year in the market.
Oh, better than that. So Social Security is in effect, you're getting 1% better than inflation. A portfolio that's diversified across stocks and bonds. So picture something very conservative, 50% stocks, 50% bonds. That kind of portfolio you can expect to earn about 5.5% above inflation. So if you got inflation of 3%, think 8.5%. Now, if you want 100% stocks, now you're talking 12 to 15%, right?
Well,
but of course,
you could also be
risky.
talking negative 10% in any given year.
Oh, yeah. This is on average, right? So this is kind of why we talk about the balanced portfolio, 50% stocks, 50% bonds, so that when the stocks go down, later on they come back up.
The long and short of it is you can do 6, 7, 8 times as good in your own private endeavors than you can on a government plan.
Right.
This is precisely why everybody has 401ks. They all know this.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we know that we can do better than Social Security. In fact, we have to do better than Social Security because the thing's going bankrupt.
You absolutely must.
Here's the number. Our median 20-year-old, when he retires, can expect to get, in today's dollars from Social Security, $30,000 a year. That's from Social Security, and that's in today's dollars. If this 20-year-old did what I'm suggesting, pay your Social Security tax until you hit age 40. At age 40, you no longer pay Social Security tax. That all comes to you. You put it in a mix of stocks and bonds. By the time you retire, you will have built up around somewhere plus or minus $500,000. The bottom line is you can pull off from that $45,000 a year. And by the time you reach age 100, the thing will be gone. So you can
actually,
with this,
believe it or not,
with this plan, end up with 50% more in retirement.
I looked up almost exactly this number a couple of days ago, not even realizing that we were going to talk about this today. If you've got about $500,000, you can pretty comfortably live between 17 and 40 years.
Yeah.
Depending on your spending habits. Right? So, on average, it's going to be 25 to 30 with old people's spending habits. And if you start taking it out when you're almost 70, yes, it gets you to almost 100.
Yeah. And now remember, people will be thinking about things like the 4% rule. And the 4% rule says you could take out 4% of your retirement funds each year. But that assumes that you want to preserve the principal.
Right.
So in effect, you're only living off the interest. I'm assuming here that you're going to draw down the principal, so by the time you reach 100, it's all gone.
Yeah, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to think.
Yeah, and if you don't like that, tighten your belt a bit. You've got plenty of room because you're making 50% more than you would have on Social Security.
And unless a miracle occurs and our average lifespan goes to about 230, which is, hey, let's face it, the kind of problem you want to have. If that happens, we're going to need new answers. But that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So really, what we're looking at here is giving people a better answer, which will yield them more money in their pockets at the end anyway, and will also have the net effect of sunsetting Social Security completely.
Yes. So this is one of the nice things about this. If everybody, as they hit age 20, comes onto this plan of you pay in until you're 40 and then you walk away, we create a wave of Americans who aren't on Social Security. And after about whatever it is, 60, 70 years, maybe pushing 100 years, nobody's on Social Security. You've sunsetted the thing.
And
that's item number one.
It's even better than that, Ant, because not only is that going to happen, but you can start saying, okay, we're at the point now where it's 39 years old. Now it's 38. Now it's 37. Right? So that the gap shrinks over time. It's not just you pay until you're 40. It's the first batch of people pay until they're 40. And we're going to do that until we can lower it to 39 or even 35, whatever.
You could imagine doing that. But I got to get the politicians on board, and they're not going to like that because you will have shut off a huge source of revenue. The federal government, up until about 10 years ago, the federal government was living off of the Social Security surplus.
And I got to take issue with your phraseology here. I'm not shutting off a massive massive stream of revenue. I'm shutting down a massive stream of debt.
We're shutting down the stream of debt if we have people come on, pay into Social Security to age 40 and drop off. If you start backing that age up, eventually nobody's paying into Social Security. And
Correct.
That's what's going to annoy the politicians.
Good.
Okay,
If there's
but
nobody on Social Security, there shouldn't be anybody paying into it.
Yeah, see, and therein lies the problem. And I'm with you 100%. If nobody's on Social Security, why is anybody paying into it? Because the politicians have come to rely on the Social Security surplus. This is revenue coming in that they use for other things. And they're going to turn to us and say, well, if nobody's paying into Social Security, even though there are no retirees out there, we're going to have to cut government programs because this money is going over here to pay for these various other things.
As of 2033, it's insolvent anyway.
Yes, as of 2033, it's insolvent anyway.
Surplus. There will be no surplus from that point forward.
Words and Numbers is part of the CiVL network. CiVL is a streaming platform dedicated to upgrading civilization by exploring better ways for people to organize, innovate, and thrive. At CiVL, we believe that societies flourish when their members honor the civic equality of all people and engage with one another through cooperation. CiVL seeks great minds from around the world to share bold ideas for fostering healthy, dynamic societies. By creating space for honest disagreement among people who share a commitment to building a better future, CiVL offers a refreshing alternative to divisive punditry and insular echo chambers. Words and Numbers is freely available, but those who subscribe to CiVL will access exclusive content, including regular live streams and conversations with remarkable people who are working to build a better society. For more information and to subscribe, visit CiVL.com. That's CiVL.com. Use the code Words and Numbers, that's one word, for 50% off an annual subscription.
Let me hold this dropout date at age 40 for the moment. So imagine moving forward forevermore. You hit the workforce age 20, you're paying your Social Security tax, you hit age 40, no more tax, but you don't get benefits either. After about 60 to 100 years, everybody who was on Social Security dies off. Nobody's on Social Security anymore. Oh, and by the way, we just overlooked an important thing. The people who are currently on or near Social Security, they don't have to worry. They're going to continue to be paid from all those 20 to 40-year-olds who are coughing up money. So nobody's losing here. People who are on Social Security, or even people who are younger, let's say you're 50 years old right now, you haven't had the time to save up, it's okay. You can stay on Social Security. This switch is only for people who are going to be coming on as age 20. Come on at age 20, you pay in. At age 40, you stop paying and you don't get benefits. Okay, that's one factor. Here's the other interesting factor, or two interesting factors, I should say. This is going to create a huge deficit. Currently, as is, Social Security deficit is supposed to reach about $750 billion, maybe continue to increase a bit thereafter, but think $750 billion to $1 trillion per year deficit. This plan maxes out at a deficit of $1.5 trillion. Now you say, oh my God, this is costing us more than the current problem. No, because it maxes out. In fact, we'll show you the graph. It maxes out in terms of deficit as the people who are currently on Social Security are still there, they haven't died yet. But as they start to die, all of a sudden, we have people paying in and fewer, and eventually nobody drawing out. So that, long term, this plan generates a $450 billion per year surplus forevermore. You've got to go through this downturn as we make the transition, and the whole transition's going to run you 50 to maybe 100 years. Maybe 100's an overstatement. 50 to 75 years is going to take for this whole transition to take place. We're going to have to borrow a lot of money as the transition's going, but once we're through the transition, Social Security becomes a free gift to the government. Here's $450, $500 billion a year. Do with it what you want. Politicians are for it. Retirees are for it. Young people will be for it. I don't see anybody who would be against it.
I'm against it.
Why are you against it?
Because the minute that nobody is on Social Security, nobody should be paying a tax.
Yeah, so philosophically, I agree with you. Practically, I'm going to speak practically. From a political standpoint, that ain't going to happen.
Here we go. How did we get here? And look, I see you trying to dangle something in front of politicians, saying, looky here, boys, I got $500 billion every year for you forever. But the politicians will all be dead and gone too. They're worried about the next election cycle. They are not worried about Social Security, and they won't be until 2033, when we have to either lower benefits in the form of lower cash payments or higher retirement age.
Or borrow more money.
Or borrow more money or raise the tax on everybody. Mm-hmm. And you know,
that is really the Achilles heel of this plan. It's not the mathematics, it's not the economics, it's the fact that it requires the government to stick to a plan for 50 to 70 years.
And to be resolute in doing so. It's beyond patience. It's resolve. And I don't know that there's a politician in this country, in these United States, who has that kind of resolve. I really don't. And,
even if there were, the politician would be dead long before we reach the 50 to 70 year mark.
I'm willing to stipulate that this is literally the smartest idea there is for addressing the Social Security fiasco. And it's never going to happen because no one will ever address the Social Security fiasco. It's called the third rail in American politics for a reason. You don't touch it. But we've gotten to the point now, and I think we said this on a recent podcast, where the mandatory spending, which is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and a couple other little things, is so profoundly huge at this point that you can't address our budgetary problems without first addressing those.
Yeah, the mandatory spending eats 100% of the tax revenue and then eats more.
So literally we have no money left for anything else once we've paid out Social Security and Medicare.
You raise a good point here, which is we lay out this plan and say, look, this is the way. You can do this. You can get out of Social Security and nobody falls through the cracks and the government ends up better off and retirees end up 50% better off. All of that. And it's not going to happen because politically it just can't. And so what is going to happen? What is going to happen is we're going to come right up to the line of Social Security's insolvency. There'll be a little bit of tweaks as we get closer to extending the retirement age or raising the payroll tax. Those tweaks will probably by, I'd say, 10 years, just enough time for the politicians who are promoting them to get out of office and leave the problem to somebody else. So then you've got an even bigger problem. You're right back where you started, only it's larger than it would have been otherwise.
Yep. The only way this ends is for Social Security, the amount paid out to individuals, to become meaningless.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen because it's automatically indexed for inflation. You'd hope that over time inflation would make it meaningless. Nope.
Sooner or later, that's what's going to happen. It'll be de-indexed. There's no way. There's literally no way to continue on the path that we're on.
And people who are going to jump up and say, well, what about the rich? They don't need Social Security. Granted, but the number of rich people who don't need Social Security is relatively small, and the Social Security they're getting is not based on how much they're earning. It's based on the cap, which is like $160,000 or $170,000. So from Social Security's perspective, when they look at Elon Musk, they see somebody who earned $170,000, and that's how his benefits will be based.
He's a vice president of a local bank.
Right, yeah. And so you can cut them out and maybe you can gain yourself another 5 years. But in 5 years, at the end of that 5 years, you're right back where you started.
Yep.
This is
Sooner or later,
the
it
program
always
has
comes
got
around
to
the
be
same
ended.
thing. That's right.
The more we extend its life, the worse the problem becomes.
That's right. And we rarely say things like have to, but we have to end this program. And you know what? You could bring me on board almost entirely if you said, and once it was finally ended, we could take that $500 billion and apply it directly to the debt.
Yeah.
Because now you got something. Now you've solved not one but two problems.
Yeah, the problem with that is you apply it to the debt and the debt gets better. And when the debt gets better, there's less political pressure and the politicians start spending more. And then you're right back where you started.
But frankly, Ant, the debt is literally out of control. And I've never heard a politician say, okay, this is the year we spend less.
Right.
So.
Oh, no. Now, to be fair, they will say we're going to spend less. But when a politician says they're going to spend less, what they mean is, right. What they mean is they're going to spend less. The increase that they're going to institute is less than the increase that they'd like to institute.
Yeah.
It's not a reduction. It's a smaller increase.
That's exactly how I cut guitar spending around this house. I wanted to spend $300 million on guitars. I spent $3,000 on guitars. That's like a, well, I can't even figure out how big.
You cut your spending by 99.9%.
That's right, isn't it? I cut my spending. And yet there are people who live in this house with me who will not accept that math because it's a bunch of nonsense. And if it's a bunch of nonsense here, trust me, it's a bunch of nonsense there.
Let me go back to things that they'll try. So they'll try tweaking increasing the payroll tax. They'll try raising the retirement age. They'll try means testing, which basically means that the rich don't get Social Security. And all of those things they'll buy you some time, but that's all they do. They buy you time. And in this instance, buying time is not a good thing. It's a bad thing because the longer Social Security persists, the bigger a problem it becomes. It's not like we're going to buy time because then we'll be able to solve the problem. No, the problem actually gets worse as you buy time. So where it ends up ultimately.
Well, you're leaving out the most draconian thing that the government is going to do.
Yeah, what it is going to do is a two-step process. Step one is going to be simply borrow. It's going to borrow more and the deficit's going to accelerate. And as the government starts to run out, as it already is, run out of places where it can borrow more money, the Federal Reserve is going to step in. And it's going to start, in effect, monetizing this. You can use the words print money if you like, but it has the effect of creating inflation. So all of us are going to end up. Do you remember the inflation of 2022 when we all paid via inflation for those stimulus checks during COVID? We're all going to be paying via inflation for an insolvent Social Security.
And still you're leaving out the most draconian part. The government is going to survey the landscape and ask everybody, and they're already going to know the answer, how much money you have in your personal retirement accounts, and then a bunch of people who have too much aren't going to get Social Security at all.
Yes. In fact, they do that already with student loans. If you are diligent and you save for your kid to go to college and then you go to apply for financial aid, what do? They say, oh, you saved $100,000, so you no longer are eligible for financial aid.
How about that?
Yep.
The government will do this. And it's not going to be, quote unquote, the rich. It's going to be people with a half-decent nest egg who were also relying on getting the return from Social Security to maintain a reasonable lifestyle. So it's going to start with people who have a lot of money. And everybody's going to say, pay your fair share. And it's going to quickly become everybody all the way down to the working class.
Yeah, and notice something. It doesn't matter at the high end. Elon Musk doesn't care if You cut his Social Security, he earns that much in interest probably every 20 minutes. Who is going to care is the middle-class two-income household that scrimped and saved and managed to put away $1, maybe $2 million, which is imminently possible on middle-class incomes if you're careful about what you're doing. And all of a sudden, the government's going to say, okay, you don't get Social Security. Well, hang on. That's now a big hit to their retirement income.
But it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yep.
But, we like at the end typically to say, so what? And here it is. So what? Well, all of this, every last bit of it can be avoided. We're in a terrible position, and we've just given you a plan that will absolutely work. There's literally no doubt that this would work. And every single person, this is literally true. Everybody's better off if we do it. So if we don't do it, that's because a bunch of politicians would rather we had a problem.
Yeah, or they'd rather sail through and not deal with it, leaving it to the next guy.
Well, that definitionally, that means they would rather that we have a problem.
Yeah.
That is their revealed preference. Right? Pay attention. Never pay attention to what people say. Only pay attention to what they do. And what do politicians do about Social Security? They kick that can down the road year after year after year. That means that they don't care about it.
One thing we can do as voters is stop asking politicians to fix Social Security. Every fix simply extends the inevitable. We need to start asking them to shut it down.
And Social Security.
Yeah, there's plenty of push behind, has been for years, in the Fed. Okay, I can maybe get behind that, but a much more pressing thing is end Social Security.
Yeah, it is a lot more pressing, and it has immediate effects on the vast majority of the people who live in this country. And yet here we are shaking our heads at one another, knowing full well that this is the very definition of an uphill climb.
Well, just think, James, in 10 years, people are going to be sending us hate mail saying, why didn't you guys see this coming?
And in 10 years, I'm going to be retired. So, man, take that, America.
Words and Numbers is a CiVL original podcast. We work with CiVL to advance their mission of upgrading civilization by exploring ideas that promote civic equality and cooperation. We believe the most pressing issues humans face, war, poverty, debt, tribalism, arise from coercive institutions that bring out the worst in us. We at CiVL look to voluntary solutions to these and other problems. We invite you to explore CiVL's new platform at civil.com. That's CiVL.com.